And so it was a 2-bedroom council flat with my aunts, her husband, their children, me and my mum. And then I think my dad was essentially I kind of sorting out our housing situation. Like, I gave a shout out to a lot of the people that I work with and organizations. I partner with strong organizations that help to enable me, because I know that it takes a village to be able to do that. And so when I go up on those stages, yeah, you might see Nana Agyemang, but it's not the Nana Agyemang show. There's loads of people behind me that have then made that possible, who I'm then also trying to pull up that ladder. Because I, for the longest, when I was younger, and again, it's also a part and parcel point of being an immigrant from Ghana, I would code switch a lot. I was hiding my African accent.
Perfect. We are back with Behind the ERG, another exciting episode. And first and foremost, if you're not subscribed, please do. And please check out the amazing guests we've had on the podcast so far. We've spoken a lot about creativity, the media industry, and now we're going to go into the finance sector. So I'm really pleased to introduce our guests for today. They are someone who has been reshaping how equity, access, and representation shows up at one of the UK's largest financial institutions. And they've also done a lot of work around advancing inclusive recruitment across their organisation and beyond. Without further ado, I'd love to introduce our guest, Nana Agyemang.
Thank you so much for having me. It's a pleasure to be here, and I have to say the space is absolutely amazing as well. Definitely feel like I've been upgraded.
No, I appreciate it. Thank you for giving us your time. And we kept that intro brief because as we delve into your story, there's just so much you've achieved in such a short period of time.
Thank you.
I know we was talking about some of the accolades you received and the list was so long, and I was thinking, oh, is this across your whole career? It's literally like in the last 2-3 years. And I was like, grace. Wow. And that's a testament to the work you've done and the things you do. So first and foremost, let's just start in terms of how you feeling today. I know traffic hasn't been the best today, but like generally, just how are you? Like,
I would say for anyone in London traveling from north to south, you got to give yourself a full 24 hours beforehand. But yes, I'm feeling good, thank you. Feeling very good. It's a sunny day as well. You know, I'm Ghanaian by heritage, as many people will guess by the name, and it's a sunny, beautiful day as well, which always benefits. I would say I'm in a really good space. Thank you for asking. At the moment, I'm working on a lot of exciting projects with work. I have a few exciting ventures that of my own that I'm also looking to explore. And my whole thing is just to, like you said, drive inclusivity and make sure that there's an equal playing field for people across the board. So yeah, feeling good. Thank you.
No, that's powerful. And you mentioned some of the ventures you're looking to explore as well, which we'll kind of delve into. Mm-hmm. But as we kind of said in the intro, we're looking at behind the ERG and behind the person and behind the work you do internally and externally. So on that point, what I want to ask you first is, what's something you've done in the last 12 months that you're particularly proud about?
Something I've done in the last 12 months that I'm particularly proud about. I would say recently I worked with Barclays to host, and I know we're going to touch on this later, a Young Black and in Finance seminar, which is I believe the 4th in the series, where we essentially have gone out to underrepresented youth. And I know, again, it's titled Young Black and in Finance, but again, it's open to allies as well, but predominantly, of course, Black professionals. But we've gone out to allies from across a number of different educational establishments, so universities that I'm plugged into. I'm a student of Anglia Ruskin University, ex-student, worked with Queen Mary University, the University of East London. I don't want to continue name dropping, I'll forget somebody, but numerous different unis in London. Worked with a number of different councils, Hackney, where I was raised, Haringey, Islington, Tower Hamlets, Newham, to name a few. We worked with a lot of wider educational establishments and colleges to basically help people, again, mainly from ethnic minority backgrounds and from lower socioeconomic backgrounds, to look at Barclays and think, yeah, that's somewhere I can be. Or again, not necessarily just Barclays, but essentially, that's the city, the Canary Wharf type of area. Had over 100 attendees for like the like the fourth year running, and yeah, it's been great being able to see people that initially walk through the door thinking there's no way in hell I can ever get into a place like this, leaving actually believing in their capabilities, and then hopefully in a few years' time they'll also be in similar positions to some people that have come from the first initial groups event. Sorry.
That's powerful, and we can touch on that. There's no
Yeah.
rules. This
Yeah,
is a
cool.
natural conversation,
Cool. No
so
problem.
we can focus on what's more important at the time. So on that event, so the Young Black in Finance event,
Yeah.
one of the things that I'm aware of is the high conversion rate of the attendees who are able to kind of secure opportunities and jobs following the event. So on that point, I want to ask firstly, what was special about the event that allowed it to kind of help people convert opportunities?
Yeah.
And then secondly, how did that event come together? Like, what was the catalyst for bringing that event to life?
Thanks for that. Great question. So I would say what's special about a particular event is, although there's, it has the normal formalities of a panel talk, guest speaker, we make sure that we're very intentional with the speakers that we get. So typically there's a panel of at least 3 directors to MDs, and a lot of those colleagues are specifically picked for the fact that ideally within Barclays or from an external company, they work themselves up right from the base of an organization into a senior position. So that can be literally from cashier right to director, or they might have come in maybe as a personal banker and now they work as an MD. And it's to show people 2 things. Number one, that again, you got to trial and error. You got to literally apply. You might get battered back, put your application in for a different role, and consistently do that until you get the opportunity. But then also to show that your career doesn't have to follow a linear path. You don't necessarily have to come in as one thing and stay in that particular vertical until you get up to where you want to be at the particular grade. You might come in as a cashier, then go into communications and marketing, and then go into strategy. It's essentially where you see the opportunity and where your passion lies. Of course, not just necessarily chasing a grade. Now, where I would say that event stems from, actually, it was actually a brainchild, and I've got to give her a shout out. A grad that joined Barclays that still works there by the name of Emmanuella, a young lady who, again, had a vision. And at the time when she kept on speaking about this Young Black in Finance event, Nana, we need to make this happen, I thought, what is she talking about? Like, what's so special about this event? Until she gave me her backstory and how she struggled to get into the corporate world and only really made that opportunity, was only able to make the opportunity happen because, again, she had somebody from Barclays go out and proactively speak at her educational establishment. And that took me back to when I was in secondary myself, and I had somebody from Barclays come out and just do a sort of life skills session. And that's what then motivated me to think, on top of, like, my mother and a few other bits, that I could make it happen. So the fact that this young prospect in the bank was really, really motivated to make it happen, I let her support me in leading that initial first trial, and that went so well. We had 3 really successful MDs from grassroots. We had early careers HR actually come there, not just as formalities to be in the building, but to actually give the applicants tangible advice and strategy in regards to how to actually successfully apply for those internships, apprenticeships, and graduate schemes. And as well as that, Barclays has a discovery program where if you're in your first year of a 3-year course or your second year of a 4-year course, you can apply ahead of the applications formally being rolled out to give you an opportunity to strike, to make your mark. And so yeah, all of those offerings are promoted there. And then on top of that as well, there's always a relevant guest speaker that is also then able to come in and give some real life external perspectives, which always helps. And I would say, like, that combination of that has helped numerous people really just build up their confidence and actually be successful in Barclays, actually, and also in some other corporates as well. Because when it comes to our people, I don't necessarily just look at it. Of course, you want people to work for Barclays, but as long as those people go on to be successful and whatever they choose, I'm perfectly fine with it.
So yeah, really powerful. And one thing that emerges from what you said so far is how passionate you are about the work you do. And kind of look at the origins of that passion. I want to talk more about your journey. So I know you came to the UK at an early age, and I'd love to know more about what that was like in terms of adapting and settling in a new environment, and like why community and like creating equitable access for underrepresented groups is something you're so passionate about.
Certainly. So yeah, I came into the UK at the age of 11. I grew up in Ghana, Accra, until that point under my grandparents and my mother. So both my grandparents essentially put a lot of effort into looking after me whilst my mother was at work. She worked for the central bank in Ghana, the Bank of Ghana, where I first got introduced to banking as a concept. People like to say you're either mathematical or linguistic as a child, and I was much more linguistic. I loved English language and literature, and I thought I was going to get into journalism. I studied all the way through primary school in Ghana, and essentially got the opportunity to move with my mum at the age of 11 to the UK. Now, I arrived on a cold September morning from the 37-degree temperatures. Real culture shock. Got to Heathrow, and again got connected with my dad there, because it was that kind of scenario where he was in the UK building a life for us to move into. And I was used to, a fat African house with loads of space to run around in. And then we moved from that to literally when I met my dad at the age of 11, we moved to Tottenham initially for about a month, and we were staying with an aunt of mine who again had her own children, family around, and so it was a 2-bedroom council flat with my aunts, her husband, their children, me and my mum, and then I think my dad was essentially kind of sorting out our housing situation. That was a major culture shock for me, because I thought, the way the UK gets painted to you is that you're going to come, the streets are paved with gold, and you're going to come down and there's Hakuna Matata and there's no more worries. And it was definitely a culture shock. So I then essentially, after 2 months of living in Tottenham with my aunt, we finally then moved into Hackney, just about maybe 10 minutes down the road. And I grew up in Hackney, literally, from that point onwards. So I essentially went into secondary school. I was supposed to go to a secondary school in Hackney actually, but because of how rough the area was, my mum was totally against it and said that she was gonna ship me to a school far out in an area known as Hornsey, which was a bit more, a bit more up there. I went to a school called Greg City Academy, which used to be called St. David's and Catherine's. It became an academy because the old school had essentially filled at Ofsted and was closed. Okay. So, and then essentially reopened with government funding as an academy. The transition was difficult because essentially in Ghana, I was raised to be extremely studious. Okay. I still remember my first day in school. I had the pencil sharpened, the sharpener, the pens, the protractor, the whole math set. And I got into my first class and everyone was just messing around, playing around. And I thought, wow, like, this is different. This is very different. And it took me a while to essentially get out of that very strict sort of upbringing where essentially, you're in school, you focus every day to also almost trying to blend into not necessarily being too cool for school, but being a bit more relaxed and laid back, trying to essentially just make sure that I assimilated somewhat to the culture and didn't stick out like a sore thumb. But I eventually found my way.
So in finding your way, and there's just so much in that journey so far already, and this is like the initial stages of you just actually traveling. Yeah. But one thing I want to talk about is there's a lot of transferable skills in terms of how you're able to adjust in the environment. So you spoke about Tottenham, Hackney, but also adjusting to new schools as well, and obviously a new country. So what were the key things you said you feel from your experience that helped you in settling into your environment, like finding your tribe, your community, your friends, and how do you feel they've helped you in your later career when it comes to your professional work as well?
Yeah. So I would say interpersonal skills. That's one of the corporate terms people use in regards to, how you get on with different types of people and different personalities. Interpersonal skills helped me a lot because I've met so many different people on my journey, from my council estate where I lived to my secondary school to even people on my commute. And building strong relations with people that, again, could become allies, could basically support me in becoming more accustomed to my new environment was essential. A lot of those people I still speak to today because I'm very selective in my friendship groups and the people that I choose to associate with. But essentially meeting those various different people, including some teachers actually that have now turned friends as well, was highly important. And it also taught me cultural norms and ways to assimilate. As well as that, another key thing that was really important for me was another key skill was how to manage risk. Now, I work in a financial institution. We speak about risk and controls in terms of, preventing financial loss, complaints, also any sort of like protests or antisocial type of behavior, you also got to watch out for that as well. Needless to say, coming up in the early 2000s in areas like Tottenham, Hackney, there was a lot of a lot of danger as well, and also potential to turn down the wrong path. And being able to sort of navigate risk effectively, being able to mitigate conflicts, being able to essentially resolve problems without having to like allow things to escalate into any sort of negativity was a skill that I carried through school, where essentially I was able to avoid any drama, avoid issues where a lot of my friends were getting detentions, getting excluded, getting put in referral units. I was able to avoid all of that because of the core principles that I was given as a child, and that's then helped me as well in my workplace now, where I'm able to navigate through the complexities of a corporate environment and mitigate conflicts, and they're not as abrupt as like it would be in inner city London in the corporate world, but it still really, really helps.
Yeah, and that's powerful. And in terms of those skills, what I want to ask is, in that journey, so I think now we're kind of like maybe secondary school in terms of your journey.
Yeah.
At what point did you decide like you want to pursue a career in finance? At like what stage of your life journey was that like something you want to do?
It definitely was in the secondary school. In secondary school, and I'll be totally transparent, I studied. So one of my favorite lessons was English. I was in my school's debate team. And the reason I chose English was because I was quite passionate about poetry, reading, and the fact that English is quite a it's a not, I wouldn't say fluid subject, but you can almost strategically argue your case in any shape or form as long as you've got a strong basis behind it. And one of the teachers that I had for English, actually, a guy called Mr. Bird, Sam Bird, he's an Arsenal supporter like myself, but we're not going to get into that right now. But he basically was a recent grad from university that I think was maybe 2-3 years out at the time, that essentially got his first job at Greg City Academy, my secondary school. And because of the fact that he was one of our youngest teachers, I related to him a lot, because even though, again, he wasn't from London, he was, again, obviously British and not a black male, he essentially understood me a lot more than a lot of my teachers that were a bit more old school. Yeah. And so I related to him a lot because of the fact that he made English very much accessible to me as an immigrant child that's then grown up in northeast London. I found that his teaching style was able to basically expose me to the finer details of controlling the English language and lit. And then he encouraged me to join our debate team. And then essentially my initial objective, to be totally transparent, was to be a journalist. That's what I was looking at before. Now, I went to, my sixth form as well. I studied English, lit, geography, business studies is where I started to get an interest in business and media. But I always looked at banks at the time, like, that's that mathematical thing that, you need an A-level in maths to do. I went to uni, did the English lit degree. Now, where I fell into banking was because I had applied for a couple of journalism related roles, but it was that chicken and egg situation of degree and experience. And so my mom at the time, like I mentioned, she worked for the Bank of Ghana, but she transitioned to the UK and was a counter manager, basically managing the cashiers in the UK. Okay. Now, she basically, I'd always been that kid running to my mom's branch in my uniform, and all the local Barclays staff knew me. So one day she just said, you know what, there's a cashiering role in Dalston. Why don't you apply? And I thought, me, a cashier in a bank? No way. Why would I do that? Put an application through anyway, because, at that point in time, I was doing bitty jobs here and there. Lord and behold, they wanted to interview me. And I thought, crap, they actually want to interview me. And then not only that, HR then contacted me and said, we don't want you in Dalston. We want to put you in Piccadilly Circus, which was the flagship branch at the time. And I thought, you want to put me in Piccadilly Circus, the flagship Barclays branch? I was bricking it, needless to say. But then I went for the interview, and by God's grace, here I am.
Amazing. And one thing that really stands out in that journey is an element of fearlessness, because like you said, like you've gone from the Dalston branch, kind of finding your feet there, straight to the Piccadilly Circus branch. But from what you've shared so far, like it didn't seem like, even though it might internally have daunted on you, that you was kind of put off in terms of taking those opportunities, and when opportunities come, it seems like you're quite forthcoming in terms of taking them.
Yeah, yeah. And I mean, one of the main reasons that I decided to take that opportunity was, again, around sort of, inclusion, because every time I went to meet my mom and she would maybe take, like, on occasions where I might have locked myself out of the house or something, I needed to go grab some keys, or essentially like needed to run some errand after work, I would always notice that there were diverse colleagues in the different branches. When I got into Piccadilly Circus, I did not expect for a minute that I was going to see a black colleague in there. So I remember I lived in Stoke Newington, Stamford Hill. I took the bus to Liverpool Street. And if for any of the viewers that are familiar with that Shoreditch transition into the city before you get to Liverpool Street, there's a point in time you get past the Box Park, and then after that, everything is glass towers and skyscrapers. And I remember seeing that transition on the bus, and my gut sunk, because I thought, wow, I'm gonna be working in this kind of environment. And then I got to Liverpool Street and then took another kind of detour and made sure I took the whole journey, my first day in, by bus, just so I could observe the scenes. And basically, when I got into Piccadilly Circus, the branch manager was a Ghanaian woman by the name of Regina Tete, and I thought, there's a Ghanaian woman managing the flagship Piccadilly Circus branch. Now, I was a bit dumbfounded, but then that made me think, well, why not me in a couple of years' time? I might have no idea what I'm doing right now, and I might have been an English lit grad, but maybe I can figure this thing out and use my strengths to my benefit.
Yeah, that's powerful, and that's a great example of being able to see what you want to be in order to achieve it. And that visibility of Regina, and big up Regina, enabled you to kind of go into your career. And now we're at the Piccadilly Circus branch. And in terms of like continue your story, so what happened next? Because obviously you're not in the branch anymore. So tell us more about, in terms of like your journey at your organization. And then also we'll probably end that with you sharing more information around what you do now as well.
Yeah, certainly. So I started as a cashier within the branch, basically the most junior role that you can possibly get into. And I was so like eager to actually just start building the career up. My salary, I'm embarrassed to say what it was, but it was very low at the time. But I said, I'll take it. Whatever you're going to pay me, I'll take it. Because I was more proud of the fact that I was going to go out. At that point in time, I'd been working every job you can imagine. I had 3 jobs at one time before that, working at Arsenal part-time, a trainer store called Shoe, and I was also doing a receptionist job, like 4 hours every other week. I joined as a cashier, and then I essentially set myself the task of essentially making the most possible referrals to a personal banker that had essentially agreed to train me up. Again, I'm very tenacious. When I set a goal, I aim to achieve it, and so I essentially was our top referrer in the branch. And within about a year, I was able to get onto that personal banking desk, because I saw how they would all come and have their coffees upstairs and sit on like their own private desks, have their clients waiting for them. And I became a personal banker within about a year and some change. And what I think I was statistically like within the top 3 of the country in terms of my performance, in terms of everything from lending to various different client solutions, mortgage referrals, etc. And that got me talent spotted by again another Ghanaian guy. There's a lot of Ghanaians in Barclays, but another Ghanaian guy by the name of Raphael Dewokpo James. So he was a small business area leader. So business banking and retail work quite closely together. And he gave me a tap on the shoulder and said, "I want you to apply for a business banking role." Of course, I still had to do the formalities, the interviews, and actually pass them, of course. But I chickened out. I looked at it and thought, I've actually made it into Barclays. I'm a high performing personal banker. Why the hell would I want to, take that risk? So I didn't take the risk at the time. And then I got bored after 6 months and thought, damn, I should have taken that opportunity. So I contacted him, and then had the opportunity to actually interview for a role a couple of months later, which I fortunately passed. I became a small business manager. So essentially, when people might have had like random decisions to start a business, or maybe even like where maybe scaling a SME or a scale up, I'd be the person they'd come to see for their first business account, their first business credit card, etc. Did that for about a year and a half, and I got to support some senior relationship managers that had issues with KYC. They essentially couldn't record their KYC correctly, and I had a close level of attention to detail, so I created like a whole process map for them in regards to making sure that they got their metrics up. And that got me an opportunity to then essentially sit down with a lot of those VPs and directors and AVPs and learn about the roles that they did, and also got me the endorsement of their line manager, a lovely lady by the name of Rebecca Thompson, who was a great ally and still is to this day. Got a job in there, and I was working in retail and wholesale at the time as a vertical, as a relationship manager. And I remember one of my toughest experiences was there's two, but one of my toughest experiences was when I was new into the role, about a month in. I went to see a client who essentially, I'll put it like this, I don't think they were fond of me, because essentially they were expecting a very much more aged relationship manager, and I turn up there in my early 20s as their relationship manager. And I got that, every black person I'm sure will know that feeling of, you get that look where people are looking at you like,
why are you here?
Why are you here? And I got the question, are you the apprentice or the banker? And I thought, it's going to be that kind of a meeting. It's going to be that kind of a meeting. Went in there and actually wowed them with my knowledge to where they were warmed up. But it was a very acute reminder that, there's still going to be some prejudice in this journey, where some people are going to look at me maybe from appearance and think that I'm not qualified to do the role. So I'm going to have to do that little bit of extra hard work, which I did, of course. And I looked at that as my diversity as a strength, not a weakness, because me being one of the only black RMs around at that point in time, and being very young as well, to me was a differentiator that could make me stand out. The other thing that really helped me was, that was a bit of a struggle, was at that point, when I became a relationship manager, shortly after we entered the pandemic and COVID happened. So whereas I would have been learning the role in person, I had to learn the majority of my role virtually. And at the same time, we were also supporting clients with bounce back loans and coronavirus loans. As you can imagine, retail and wholesale, all my clients were closed. So it was a difficult time managing expectations. And that was when I took my initiative here. I saw an employee communications role and thought they have, and again, it might sound silly now, but at that point in time, I literally thought they have employee communications roles in Barclays. Cool. I took the opportunity. I sent my dissertation to the hiring manager, found his name on the phone book, and said, listen, I've got experience in employee communications. I haven't done it for 5 years because I've been in coverage, but this is my dissertation. It's on the synonymous relationship between song lyrics and poetry. So I was analyzing like the Psalms and comparing them to like 90s R&B, essentially saying that they're disseminating the same message. Got an opportunity to interview. I had 3 interviews, one with the director and the hiring manager, another one with an AVP and another VP, and then I had a team interview where the team just got to fill me out. Fortunately, I got that role by God's grace, put in the work, excelled in that, and then I got to move into marketing in Barclays, and then finally, off my good work in marketing and employee communications, as well as being a business relationship manager before that, then moved into my current role as a proposition delivery manager in Eagle Labs, which is a part of Barclays Business Banking.
Wow, congrats.
It's been a journey.
Yeah, it does sound like a journey, but it sounds like your resilience has helped you transition through that. We are back with Behind the ERG, and we've got something special and different for you today. So as you can see, there's no guest, it's just me. But what we have for you today is something special from our friends at Wingstop. So anyone that knows me or that knows Emerge or Behind the ERG knows that any of our events, we always have Wingstop involved in some way. And at our last event, people said that there wasn't enough Wingstop and there wasn't enough vouchers. So we reached out to the team and they have come back. And what we have for you today is 2 £100 vouchers for one of you lucky listeners to win. All you got to do in order to do this is follow our Instagram page, which is Behind the ERG, and you will have more information on there on how you can enter and how you and a friend can enjoy 1, 2, 3, maybe 4 trips to Wingstop and redeem these vouchers. So get involved, get in touch, and tag in the comments which one of your lucky friends you're going to be sharing the Wingstop with. Thank you. And one thing I want to ask Ness, which is focusing more on your accolades, is I know you've won a number of awards. I see on LinkedIn, at least once every 2 weeks, you won something.
2 weeks. Oh, my God's grace. Man.
So let's talk about that.
Yeah.
So I know you've been recognized by the Investing in Diversity Awards,
Yeah.
Black Talent Awards, and most recently the CCC Awards as Corporate Professional of the Year. Is that correct?
Yeah, Corporate Impact Leader. Yeah,
Corporate Impact Leader of the Year. Now, let's talk about that from the perspective of why are these accolades important to you? Could you keep accumulating them? And by the time this goes out, there'll probably be a new award that you posted about on LinkedIn as well.
Grace.
And then secondly, because I see some of the shortlists of some of the awards, and there's some really inspiring people that I know that are in the same category of you. What do you think it is about the work you do that is so highly acclaimed and so highly recognized by your peers?
Yeah. Firstly, I want to say that I'm very thankful to everyone in my corner, with it, both personally and commercially at work, that support me, because a lot of the work that I do would not be possible without them being enablers. And that's colleagues that help me to put in the work, as well as leaders that, remove barriers and also give me the space that I need to be able to do what I do. I would say... So, sorry, what was the first question, if you don't mind?
So the first question was why are these awards important to you? And then the second part of it was, what do you think that you're doing that's so highly acclaimed, where you're in these really competitive categories for different awards, but you're able to kind of triumph and be acclaimed for the work you do?
Yeah, so I would say the reason that these awards are important to me is I feel like it creates representation. That same feeling that I had when I walked into Piccadilly Circus and I saw Regina on the branch, or when Raf tapped me on the shoulder and said, I'm the business manager of area leader for Central London, and I think you should apply for a role. And they were two black leaders that were in prominent positions. I want to be able to give hope to the next generation. Like, currently, youth unemployment rates in this country are crazy. There's a lot of people, not just black youth, but again, youth across the board, like black, Asian, females as well, that feel out of place. And I want them to be able to look at me as somebody that's an anomaly, that didn't even think that they were going to get into banking, that doesn't have a mathematical background in education. I studied English literature. I did well in maths at GCSE. I got my B, and I thought there's no way I'm going to A-level maths. Pythagoras theorem and all of that is, you can see, you never see me again with that. But I want people to be able to look at me and say, you know what? He's a bit rough around the edges. He hasn't got it all perfect, but he's working it out as he goes along, and he's essentially making a difference because of his passion, his belief, and essentially he's got that motivation to really believe that anything is possible. I watched a Busta Rhymes and Stephen Bartlett conversation, and Busta Rhymes made an important point. He said you have to be maniacal. He said sometimes in life you got to literally believe in something so fervently that people look at you and they think, how the hell does he think he's going to make that happen? But honestly speaking, as long as you got that sincere belief in yourself, and you got God with you, by anything's possible, in my humble opinion. So why they're important is because they create representation. They make noise. Like the Investing in Ethnicity Awards, the CCC Awards, the Black Talent Awards, the Power List, for example. By God's grace, one day, that being able to show that you can literally be an immigrant to this country. I had to get naturalized. I had to actually, because both my parents were Ghanaian citizens, I had to go through the whole, life in the UK, do all of that type of stuff. So yeah, mainly because of the representation, and also because it gives other people hope that they can then also come and surpass me, which is what I want. Now, how I think I'm able to, fortunately by God's grace, get on the top of these lists and get chosen, is because everything I win gives me more purpose to serve the community. I know it might sound like, like you might read some of the stuff on LinkedIn and you might think, oh, accolade after accolade, is he doing it for the accolades? Not at all, because when I win an accolade, I'm able to then go to my bosses in Barclays and say, see, like, this is tangible proof that the work I'm doing is changing lives, it's making commercial difference. Because some people look at diversity, equity, and inclusion like it's just a formality, but it actually drives inclusion. It helps to create cultural ties with communities that invest in businesses. And so why I think the work that I do stands out is because I make sure that I, of course, support the communities that need it, but I also make sure that I drive commerciality for the business, because at the end of the day, we're in a capitalist society where money is a very important factor. The black pound is again a very, 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 very powerful force, but it needs to be directed in the right places. And as well as that, we also need opportunities for black businesses in terms of venture capital, debt from banks, etc. Because there's the statistics when it comes to that are quite frankly appalling. Now I do a lot of work to make sure that commercially, black entrepreneurs, black professionals are able to perform, whether that's getting jobs or successfully striving in businesses. I'm able to quantify that and also give them opportunities to drive that more. And a lot of the time as well, I look at how I can work with successful partners. So again, like I gave a shout out to a lot of the people that I work with and organizations. I partner with strong organizations that help to enable me, because I know that it takes a village to be able to do that. And so when I go up on those stages, yeah, you might see Nana Agyemang, but it's not the Nana Agyemang show. There's loads of people behind me that have then made that possible, who I'm then also trying to pull up that ladder.
Wow. Firstly, giving you your flowers.
Thank you.
Because the work you're doing is exceptional. And that's one of the ways in which you came on my radar, because literally, like I said, LinkedIn, just seeing you winning all these awards, and I'm like, this is someone I need to know, because like, why is he always winning all these awards? But obviously, not just from the conversation we've had today, but reading your bio for the different awards and speaking to people that I respect highly in the industry, like the work you're doing is fantastic. Thank and may continue as well. On that point, you mentioned it in what you just shared now, but what I want to talk about is how you're able to kind of like interlink community impact, especially for underrepresented groups and black founders and business owners, but also business impact into your work. So as much as you can share, just kind of talk a bit more in terms of how you're able to interlink the two, because there's people that work in the corporate space that want to do more for the community, but because of business objectives, whatever it may be, they're not able to. So it'll be good for you to share that, how you're able to do that, and what you suggest to someone who works in, doesn't have to be finance, it could be any sector, but wants to do more for the community, but just maybe need some guidance in terms of how to kind of link it to like a business benefit, or even how they go about approaching that.
Certainly. So I would say the easiest way to do that is to look for problems in your organization. Now that might sound counterintuitive, so I'll give you an example. When I used to work in marketing at Barclays, I realized that we were great at supporting large corporate organizations, putting on great big events with large corporate partners, and hosting big events with, household names. But there wasn't a lot being done locally with local entrepreneurs, giving them opportunities to say, yeah, I've been supported by Barclays to host X event, or I'm hosting my event in Barclays Moorgate or Chancery Lane or Mayfair. So I thought, why don't we come up with an event strategy? And so I identified the problem in that we didn't have a great engagement with local entrepreneurs, and I came up with a whole event strategy. Learned as I went along, of course, made some mistakes, but then corrected them as I went along, and then identified opportunities for us to work with entrepreneurs that were coming up with large networks in places like Moorgate, Mayfair, Chancery Lane, initially as trial runs. So I did events with everything from suit tailors to football heritage organizations to early career companies, and I would often get like relevant colleagues, whether they be business managers or mortgage advisors or personal bankers or wealth advisors, to come to these events and speak as well, because I coined it as experience events. So maybe, let's say for example, you and me both have an interest in football. You might be a client, I'm the banker, right? But we go there, we've got a third party speaker that maybe designs bespoke kits for the Premier League, and he's given a talk, and we both find that mutually interesting. That experience event would then give us a sort of warm basis to then speak, conduct business, etc. But that entrepreneur is an underrepresented founder. He was a black founder, for example, and his network are again full of black professionals. That brought people in through the door and allowed us to engage. And I was able to then show the business that if you engage the right SMEs and the right scale ups, they bring other people through the door. And that got me endorsement to then run that same initiative in Birmingham, Manchester, Glasgow, Belfast, to the to the point where Cardiff, to the point where it became a normal part of BAU, and went on to inspire a lot of roles that were created also off the back of that. Another thing is my business unit that I'm currently in, fortunately, worked with the UK Gov on a project known as the Digital Growth Grant, which essentially was a large government fund from the Department of Science, Innovation and Tech, to support entrepreneurs. We've had a Black Founders Accelerator program that one of my amazing colleagues, Natalie, has had run, and she set that up, and essentially has been running over 6 years with Foundervine.
We've got Natalie, by the way, as well.
Yeah, Natalie's
amazing,
doing her
another
thing.
amazing. Sorry, I was going to say Natalie, is it OB or MB?
MB.
And Natalie
yeah.
MB.
So sorry, I've got to say the Natalie Ojeva MB, because if she sees this, I've got to add the you got to add the MB in at the end. But yeah, she set up the Black Founders Accelerator program, and one of the challenges I had to my line manager at the time was, we support Black founders at startup stage, but what we doing for scale up? Because not every Black founder is going to be a startup, and again, not saying that there was a prejudice, but sometimes perception can be, we support them up to a certain point, and then off you go, like find your way in the market. And then we ran the Black Venture Growth Program for 2 years with the support of that funding from government, and I was able to jump on as the program lead for that and really drive some innovative work streams, supporting like really amazing founders. One great founder that's really doing his thing right now, I've mentioned to you before, was Thomas Robson, Kanu, ex-Arsenal and Wales footballer that runs the Tumeric company as well. He's fortunately come back and done a lot of great work with us at Barclays, but then again, being able to show that essentially there's that appetite in the Black community for programs like this, open up the door. I'm a big ambassador for women in business as well. Like the bank has a fabulous women in business initiative as well that's run by the bank, and again, getting involved in hosting roundtables for Black founders, female founders. I organized a roundtable event for Black founders with a venture capital firm from the US, and honestly, it was so well attended. Like literally now, like the bank even considered doing that as an annual thing. And so it's just about showing that there's commerciality by looking at different ways to disrupt the system and be a bit unorthodox, looking for problems. So for anyone that's an organization outside of finance, in finance, I would say look at things that your organization is not doing and put your head up above the parapet and put in a bit, or it's going to take a bit of work, but just make a recommendation of something that you could do, even if it's something small, and it will snowball gradually into something a lot larger. What I'm talking about is work that I'd been putting in for about 4.5, if not 5 years, but then eventually it grew to what it's become now, where even that marketing event strategy was one of the examples I used in my interview for my Eagle Labs role, which is probably what landed me the job, because I was showing that initiative and thinking outside of the box.
That's powerful, and that's a testament, again, I said it earlier, I say it again, to your resilience and your ability to use your platform and influence to not just help yourself but help others as well. This is probably going to be my last question in terms of like your day to day, but you mentioned a couple of things that would be good to explain to the audience, as much as you can. So the first one is, what's the Eagle Labs? Because there's people listening to this that have no idea what that is. And then the second one is around like what's next from a career perspective. So you've achieved a lot so far professionally, but what is it that you want to do going forward, whether it's in the finance sector or another area?
So Eagle Labs is Barclays Eagle Labs is the beyond banking arm of Barclays. It's in the business bank, and it's essentially an incubator for startup and scale up entrepreneurs. So anyone that might have an idea that they want to launch, or potentially existing founders that are scaling businesses, looking at how they can get venture capital, debt, or even or grants or other forms of funding, basically. And it's like sort of like your introduction into the wider Barclays business banking ecosystem. So they run accelerator programs, they connect people to mentors and investors. It's basically like a platform to help founders, whether they're starting out or scaling, connect, innovate and grow their businesses, basically, pretty much. Now, for me personally, I'm currently an assistant vice president, proposition delivery manager. Now, a proposition delivery manager is basically the proposition is Eagle Labs, an incubator to help people connect, innovate and grow, and my job is to essentially help the delivery of a part of that, like the Black Venture Growth Accelerator program, or some of our external engagement and communications and our thought leadership pieces. So a proposition delivery manager is basically somebody that it's basically, put simply, it's a service delivery manager. Eagle Labs is a service / proposition, and my job is to help as a delivery manager, take a chunk of that and deliver it, similar to like a project manager, but it's doing a service, delivering a service. And what I'm an AVP proposition delivery manager. By God's grace, next couple of months, hopefully not too long, want to try and aim towards becoming maybe a VP in that space, because that would then give me a lot more external clout to then also look at how I can maybe even independently support entrepreneurs with their own ventures. I mean, I've got that skill set currently, but I look at myself currently as an entrepreneur. So the slight difference with an entrepreneur is like a colleague that is within a corporate organization but demonstrates entrepreneurial like skills to, you know, create new innovation, to go knock on the MD's door and say, why are we not doing this? We should be doing X, Y, Z to be ahead of our competitors. It will benefit the community. And I feel like essentially, if by God's grace I can make that one next jump, I've moved up a couple from a grade analyst, grade 2, up to an AVP, which is like a 5th level in a couple of years. If I can make that 6th jump, hopefully within Barclays, I feel like that will give me the opportunity to be a real disruptor within the space, and then also the leverage to then also have that real credibility even externally as well, to also again even build my network and foundation even stronger as well, and then hopefully have those two mutually synergized. Because one thing I'll say about the company I work for now is that even though it's a legacy bank and it's been around for over 330 years, you know, it's a great organization to give me the capability to really make a difference. Hence why I've been able to fortunately win so many accolades, because a lot of the leaders in that organization are diverse themselves and very much willing to open up doors and create opportunities. So like I would say the next for me is making sure that I'm able to create those opportunities, not just even for businesses, but I want to be able to create opportunities for the next Nana Agyemang to come in and then turbocharge what I've done and hopefully become an MD and then open up the doors. Because my whole thing is, I don't believe in gatekeeping. I believe in being able to come into spaces like Barclays, like the corporate, like Canary Wharf in general, and that for Nana Agyemangs to be there. I'm not saying everyone's going to be named Nana Agyemang, but you get the point. But like many more versions of me and Ed and you know, others to be able to come into Canary Wharf and feel like I belong here. Like, yes, I'm from a lower socioeconomic background, I'm an ethnic minority, but yes, I belong in Canary Wharf. It took me a while to acclimatize, because I started in Branch and I moved into Canary Wharf when I became an employee communications colleague, like a partner, like I mentioned. So when I first went into Canary Wharf, I was dumbfounded. I thought, wow, they got like 3 different lift systems and it's 31 floors. Like, you know, you got to scan your card to walk in. This is nothing like the Branch, and I felt out of place. But I want to, and eventually I found my way. But I want people to be able to, you know, like walk into Canary Wharf and say, yeah, I'm here, I've landed, I belong here. I should negotiate my salary, not just accept the first offer that I'm made, because I'm worth it. And that's the kind of the force I want to be able to create, sort of basically building up that village.
Let's touch on that for a bit, because you spoke about how you've transitioned from Branch into corporate.
Yeah.
And Dalston Branch and Canary Wharf is 2 very different locations.
Yeah.
What I want to ask, and this also is probably something for you to share with our listeners, is what advice would you give for someone who is moving into the corporate world? Because it can be daunting going into Canary Wharf, and there's a lot of stereotypes around it in terms of 3-piece suits, high-rise buildings, these glass offices. So what would you suggest to someone who has either recently made that transition or has the goal to be like one day, like they're watching TV shows like Suits or something, and then like, I'd love to work in that kind of space where I have my own like glass office and my EA that brings me like tea or coffee every 2 hours. So share your thoughts in terms of like adapting into that environment and kind of like building your tribe, and I'll probably explore the ERG aspect after that as well.
Yeah, certainly. I would say the first thing is be yourself with skill. So, you know, you can't obviously bring your full self to work. Like, I'm an Arsenal supporter. I can't come to work like in Nana Agyemang, the Arsenal supporter. I have to be professional, of course. Not saying I'm unprofessional when it comes to sport, but, you know, you have to carry yourself with a certain etiquette when you're in a space like Canary Wharf. But you can still be your unique self, because I, for the longest, when I was younger, and again, it's also a part and parcel point of being an immigrant from Ghana, I would code switch a lot. So as I came and I'll quickly kind of skim through this. When I was 11 years old, going into 12, going into year 7, all my friends had gone to local primary schools. They had their friends. So I was hiding my African accent, you know, trying to sound British, and it didn't sound right because, you know, like at that point in time, I might sound British now because I'm in my 30s and I've been here for years. But when I had my African accent and I was trying to mask it, and I was trying to code switch a lot. Code switching in certain aspects needs to be done in some degrees, but on a day-to-day, I honestly think it's important to really embrace yourself. When I was in school, it wasn't cool to be African. Now it's the coolest thing. Now it's the coolest thing ever. But
everyone's listening to Afrobeats.
Everyone's listening to Afrobeats, wants to go to Ghana and Nigeria, but back then it wasn't the case, you know. So I would try and code switch a lot. And when I joined Barclays, I remember on my first Eagle Labs meeting, I went down to Glasgow, and I was the one black person in the room when we were discussing sort of what we were going to do as what became the Black Venture Growth Program. And I remember being sat there, one of the youngest in the room, the only black person there, and I had imposter syndrome. And I remember everyone's having this conversation about the best accelerator program for the black community, and I'm the one black person in the room thinking, I don't know if I should speak. And then, you know, I eventually got the confidence to speak, and I noticed a lot of nodding heads, and these were from really senior people within the organization. And then as I, you know, of course, I started off stammering and stuttering, but eventually I built my confidence up. And then, you know, we went out for a break, and then I had university lecturers and a couple of other people from our advisory board coming up and saying, yeah, I love that idea, Nana, tell me a bit more about XYZ. And that gave me the confidence to come out my shell gradually, of course, over time. So what I would honestly say to anyone that, again, comes from, again, backgrounds similar to myself, yourself, is that a lot of those life issues that you go through, or problems that you or that you might face, or struggles that you might face on the journey, are teaching you a lot of soft skills. They're teaching you interpersonal skills, like I mentioned, risk management, crisis mitigation, being digitally savvy, even doing small things like teaching your mum how to use digital apps, little things like that I've had to do. You know, like it teaches you transferable skills, patience in regards to how you can, you know, again, be great if you're client facing. And so look at all of those soft skills and understand that it gives you street smarts. When I went into the bank as a personal banker, I was, by God, and this is by God's grace, I outperformed all of my private school educated colleagues as a personal banker because I had street smarts. I understood how to, again, when I said code switching is needed, I understood where the Ghanaian auntie comes in, and, you know, we both relate because we're both from Ghana and the UK, how to relate to her. I knew how to relate to my more posh clients. I knew how to assimilate to that. I knew when, you know, I had somebody that, again, maybe was a bit more urban, how to kind of become accustomed to them. And again, you'd have people from urban backgrounds and high net worth environments, like, you know, your Dean Forbes, your Afwords from the Bank of England, etc. And I learned how to essentially acclimatize to different people. So those clients would all wait and say, we want to see Nana. We want to see Nana. We're going to wait for him. I was the one personal banker that would just jump on the till with the cashiers and serve people on the tills and build relationships that way. I would just go into the banking hall where people are like, why is he out there in the banking hall? But it's because I was out there just, you know, mixing and mingling, trying to mix my own sort of uniqueness to that role. So I would say, don't code switch too much. Of course, where necessary, but bring yourself with skills. So be professional, but ultimately let your skills shine, because these corporate organizations hire people based on personality, based on potential, based on your uniqueness. Because I know there's a lot of talk about AI, but we're not there yet. People still care about that human interaction and that personalized touch. And also look at your diversity as a strength, whether you're Black, Asian, LGBTQ+, neurodivergent, from a disabled, like, you know, you have a physical or mental disability. Look at that as your what makes you unique, because like, to make a large corporate organization like Barclays work, you need people with different mindsets. I need people that are going to challenge ideas that I have, because then it makes me sharper, makes me look at things that I maybe hadn't thought about and actually refine the idea. You know, that's the importance of an executive board as well, or an advisory board like we have, so people can back forth ideas. And so, yeah, be yourself. You represent a large portion of the UK if you come from a lower socioeconomic background, especially in this current cost of living crisis. The Black community, again, like, I'm one of I'm an assistant vice president, and there's a lot more colleagues at that grade now. But at the time, I was one of the few Black colleagues that in that space. But then me being able to pull up a lot more people because of my experiences, has essentially made sure that there's a lot more diversity. But again, it's important to really, really, really just understand that you represent a large and significant portion of the country with a great buying power, whether you're Black, Asian, or whatever ethnicity or background or sexual orientation you are. So it's important to make sure that you see the strength in your diversity and also essentially be that touch point for your community and show the strength in them.
I'm just going to recap on some of the things you just shared, because there's a lot of useful gems for our listeners. So you spoke about bringing yourself to work with skill, being yourself, and being able to code switch strategically. So being able to kind of like read the room and know what version of yourself you should bring to different spaces. And I think that's powerful. I'm going to use our final couple of questions to just learn more about you. So we've delved into a lot about the professional Nana, but I want to know more about the social Nana. So I'm going to do it in a way where it's effectively called this or that.
Yeah, cool.
So I'm going to give you two options, and you can just let me know which one is your preference.
Cool.
So night out or night in?
I'll say night in. Night out occasionally, but a night in, you know, in the right setting. I can be a bit of an introvert sometimes. I like my space, and I also like being able to just essentially do things in my own time. So I'll say a night in with the right people.
Staycation or vacation?
Vacation. Warmer temperatures, man.
Fair enough. I'm not going to argue with you on that one. So, going to games. So I'm talking about football, or watching it, like at home or a pub setting or whatever it may be.
If it was cheaper, I would say going to games, but I can't lie to you. Being able to watch games at home, I know it's not the same as in person, but having like camaraderie of friends, and it's you have your social circle around, even being able to go to your local business or like a pub or a restaurant, being able to put some money in their pockets and just,
you gotta pick one, bro.
I would say staying in, man. I know it's not the same, but again, I don't get paid to be in those cold stadiums watching Arsenal embarrass me sometimes, you know.
Staying in, cool. And then the next one I'm gonna ask you is eating in or takeaway.
I'll say takeaway. You know, like when mum's around in town, that jollof rice is on deck. But you know, sometimes when I'll keep busy, takeaway. I'll say takeaway because I know some really, really good some Ghanaian and wider West African spots I like. So I'll say takeaway. Yeah.
And then binge watching a TV series or binge watching, well, not being necessarily binge watching, but watching a film.
Film.
Film person.
Yeah, I'm a film person. Movies all the way. Like honestly, I'm definitely a film person.
Favorite film? I feel like your favorite film tells a lot about your character.
Yeah, man, it does. Matrix. I love the Matrix. I think there's so many deeper esoteric things in the Matrix. Yeah.
So that kind of highlights your deep thinker, consciousness.
Deep thinker, 100%.
Cool. What I'm gonna do now is we have a pass the mic segment on this podcast.
Amazing.
And our previous guest has a question for you.
Amazing.
And what they want to ask you is, how do you ensure that the knowledge, experience, and expertise that you have gained for your career doesn't stop with you and it's passed down? And you've touched on that throughout the conversation, but be able to kind of just summarize what you do in order to do that. Yeah,
I give other professionals from backgrounds similar to myself the opportunity to, with my support, lead on projects. So I don't try and give people the fish. I try and give people the rod so that they can learn how to fish and create a meal for themselves as well. So I've got loads of young professionals that I mentor, both male and female. And one thing that I always encourage them to do is not just depend on me to be the consistent food supplier, to go out, try and catch the food themselves, fail, come back to me, tell me what they did so I can give them the direction to then go and try again. I like to basically enable people to essentially learn themselves proactively. And also one thing I always encourage people to do is apply hard work, dedication, and motivation. My personal mantra, it's a bit cheesy, but hard work plus dedication multiplied by motivation is elevation all day. I believe as long as you essentially are willing to put yourself out there and don't have an anti-failure culture, you're out there trying, you might have a situation where you get rejected 100 times, but 101 time is that opportunity. I make sure that I instill that into people, that resilience. My journey has had, some great accolades, but there's been lows. There's been times where I wanted to apply for roles and I thought I had it in the bag and I got rejected, but I had to just dust myself off and go again. And I believe that, like, giving people the capability to not just learn from me, but actually practically self-teach themselves with my support is what's going to make sure that there's many more people like me to come.
That's powerful.
And
just before you
better.
continue, because you dropped a framework in there, and I just want you to recap it for the people listening. So it says hard work
plus dedication multiplied by motivation equals elevation. So essentially, you put in the grind, you stay dedicated, and exercise consistency. And then you stay self-motivated, so you don't need people to come and pick you up every single day telling you to do it. You do that. So you do the hard work, you stay dedicated, consistent, and you motivate yourself. You learn how to motivate yourself. You have the maniacal mindset, will get you elevated 100%.
And what I'm going to do is I'm going to ask people in the comments to repeat that and make sure you get it correct. And if you do get it correct, we might have something special for someone the first person who's able to recap that correctly. Thank you, Nana. Honestly, a powerful conversation. Before we wrap up, what I want to ask you is, what challenge or question do you have for our next guest?
The next question or challenge I will have for the next guest is, we all see that what the world's in a bit of a crazy state at the moment. There's a lot of separation, a lot of segmentation. When life presents those types of challenges where there's a lot of division, what essentially do they do to maintain that belief in themselves that, like, there's brighter days to come where they're going to be able, society and even they themselves are going to be able to overcome that? And how do they maintain that belief in others, especially in high stakes situations where, there's all sorts of issues, needless for me to say, across the globe? How they make sure that they, in the face of pushback against important initiatives like what we've discussed today, how they motivate themselves to stay focused, and also in turn motivate others, not just people junior, but also, again, those senior to stay on board.
Yeah, that's powerful. I might have to watch that back to make sure I recap that correctly. And I might summarize it, but I think that's a powerful question to ask, especially, like you said, in the current times. Nana, honestly, thank you so much for your time. A powerful story and testament. And if anyone question any of the awards you've got, like this, take an hour out to watch this and then understand the excellence you're doing.
Thank you.
So
thank you.
I'm going to wrap up by saying thank you again, Nana. That was an amazing tale of excellence in finance, also resilience, adaptation, being able to adapt to various different environments, and also using your platform to create equitable pathways for other people as well. So if you haven't already, like we said at the beginning, please make sure you like, subscribe, and share this podcast episode with someone you know who has those aspirations of either moving to finance, overcoming challenges or barriers, adapting to a new environment, or just wants to be inspired by someone's story to inspire them. So thank you again for tuning into Behind the ERG. Appreciate the support. Like I said, something in the comments for the first person that remembers Nana's framework. And share with a friend, share with a colleague, share with someone that you feel needs to be inspired by Nana's story. So thank you so much once again. Please continue to support Behind the ERG. And like I said, share in the comments someone that you feel should be included in the next episode. Take care. Peace. Have a great day.